There are moments in life when it feels like heaven is silent. You've prayed, you've believed, you've waited, and still nothing has moved. Promises seem postponed, doors remain shut, and progress feels delayed. But a delay is not a denial when God is involved. Scripture reminds us that God operates on purpose, not panic. What looks late to us is often right on time in his plan. In the Bible, Joseph waited years in prison before stepping into the palace. Abraham waited decades before holding the promise in his arms. The delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God often allows delays because he's not just working on the blessing, he's working on you. He's aligning character with destiny, faith with responsibility, and obedience with authority. If he released everything immediately, we might receive the gift but lose the purpose. Delays also expose what we truly trust. When answers don't come quickly, we discover whether our faith is in God or just in what God can give us. Waiting seasons stretch our trust, deepen our prayer life, and mature our obedience. But here's the good news. When God decides to release what has been delayed, it happens suddenly. What was held back for years can be released in a moment. One word from God can override years of resistance. One act of obedience can unlock what seemed impossible. So don't give up in the waiting. Stay faithful. Stay aligned. Stay obedient. Because the same God who allowed the delay is the God who controls the release. And when he releases it, no force can stop it. When we experience delay, our natural instinct is to assume something has gone wrong. We start asking questions like, did I miss God? Or is this promise no longer for me? But delay does not mean denial when God is involved. It simply means that God is still working out his plan in a way that aligns with his purpose, his timing, and his wisdom. What we often interpret as God withholding something is actually God orchestrating something far greater than we can see in the moment. Human timing is driven by urgency, pressure, and emotion. We want answers now, change now, relief now. But God is not rushed by our calendars or constrained by our deadlines. He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end all at once. When God makes a promise, it is not threatened by time. If he said it, he will do it, regardless of how long it takes. The delay does not cancel the promise. It protects it until the right moment arrives. Throughout Scripture, God consistently fulfills his word, but rarely on the schedule people expect. What looks like waiting to us is often God arranging circumstances, moving people, and aligning events behind the scenes. While we see stillness, heaven is active. While we feel forgotten, God is attentive. Silence from God does not mean absence. It often means he is working in ways that don't require our awareness. Delay also serves as a filter for faith. When things don't happen quickly, our motives are tested. We begin to discover whether we truly believe God or whether we only believe in quick results. Waiting seasons strip away entitlement and replace it with dependence. They force us to trust God's character instead of demanding immediate outcomes. In this way, delay strengthens faith rather than destroying it. Many times denial would mean the door is permanently closed. But delay means the door is still there. It just hasn't opened yet. God may delay because the moment is not fully prepared or because we are not yet ready to walk through what we are asking for. A blessing received too early can become a burden instead of a benefit. God, in his wisdom, refuses to release something that would harm us rather than help us. Delay also teaches patience, which is not passive waiting but active trust. Patience trains us to remain obedient, hopeful, and faithful, even when progress seems invisible. It teaches us to keep praying when nothing appears to change and to keep serving when nothing seems to be happening. That kind of patience builds spiritual maturity that cannot be rushed. Sometimes delay is God's mercy. What we want immediately may look good to us, but could be incomplete, unstable, or unsafe at that moment. God sees dangers we don't see and outcomes we can't predict. By delaying, He protects us from consequences we are not prepared to handle. What feels like frustration now may later be recognized as divine protection. It is also important to understand that God's delays are purposeful, not random. He does nothing without intention. Even when we don't understand the reason, we can trust the nature of the one who controls the timing. God does not tease his people with promises he never intends to fulfill. His delays are not games. They are part of a greater strategy. When we accept that delay is not denial, it changes how we wait. We stop waiting with anxiety and start waiting with expectation. We stop complaining and start trusting. We stop assuming the worst and start believing that God is still faithful. Delay becomes a season of growth instead of a season of doubt. In the end, understanding that delay is not denial allows us to remain anchored in hope. It reminds us that God's promises are secure, his timing is perfect, and his plans are still unfolding, even when nothing seems to be moving. God often uses seasons of delay as workshops for preparation. While we focus on the outcome we desire, God focuses on the person we are becoming. Before he changes our circumstances, he frequently changes us. This preparation is not meant to frustrate us, but to fortify us so that when the promise arrives, we are able to handle it with wisdom, humility, and faithfulness. Preparation involves shaping character. Many people ask God for bigger opportunities, greater influence, or increased responsibility without realizing that these things amplify who we already are. If pride, impatience, fear, or inconsistency are present before the blessing, they will only grow stronger after it arrives. God delays not because he is unwilling to bless, but because he is committed to developing integrity, discipline, and spiritual maturity in us. What God prepares us for externally, he must first prepare us for internally. Delay also builds spiritual endurance. Faith that has never been tested remains shallow. When prayers are answered immediately, trust has little opportunity to grow. But when answers take time, faith is stretched, strengthened, and deepened. Waiting seasons teach us how to stand firm when emotions fluctuate and circumstances don't align with our expectations. Endurance developed in delay equips us to remain steady when challenges arise after the blessing is released. God's preparation often includes hidden work. Much of what God does in us happens out of public view. In these quiet seasons, when applause is absent and progress is not obvious, God refines motives and corrects attitudes. He teaches us to serve without recognition and to obey without immediate reward. The SE lessons protect us later. When visibility and responsibility increase, delay also teaches alignment with God's will. Sometimes what we ask for is good, but our understanding of it is incomplete. Waiting gives God space to reshape our desires so that they align more closely with his purpose. Over time, what we want begins to look more like what God wants. This alignment ensures that when the blessing arrives, it fits within God's plan rather than competing with it. Preparation includes learning dependence on God rather than self-reliance. When things move slowly, we are forced to acknowledge our limitations. We learn that strength, provision, and direction ultimately come from God. This dependence keeps us grounded and prevents us from becoming self-sufficient once success or breakthrough occurs. God prepares us to remain connected to him even after our prayers are answered. God also uses delay to teach obedience in small things. Often people want major breakthroughs without being faithful in everyday responsibilities. Preparation involves showing up consistently, doing what is right when no one is watching, and honoring God in ordinary moments. These habits form the foundation that supports greater responsibility later. What is developed in obscurity sustains us in visibility. Another aspect of preparation is emotional maturity. Waiting exposes impatience, frustration, and fear, giving God opportunities to heal and strengthen us emotionally. He teaches us how to manage disappointment without losing hope and how to trust without controlling outcomes. Emotional maturity is essential because unprocessed emotions can sabotage even the greatest blessings. Preparation also positions us to steward the blessing well. God is not only concerned with giving, but with sustainability. He wants what he releases to last. Delays allow him to equip us with wisdom, discernment, restraint. These qualities ensure that when the opportunity comes, we do not misuse it or squander it. In many cases, preparation includes learning humility. Waiting reminds us that we are not in control of timing or outcomes. It teaches us to submit to God's authority and trust his leadership. Humility keeps us teachable and open to correction, which is vital when greater responsibility comes. Ultimately, God's preparation through delay is an act of love. He is not withholding. He is strengthening. He is not ignoring. He is investing. Every moment of waiting is shaping us for what is ahead, ensuring that when the promise is released, we are ready not just to receive it, but to sustain it. Waiting seasons have a way of revealing what truly anchors our trust. When things are moving forward and prayers are being answered quickly, it is easy to say we trust God. But when progress slows, when answers are delayed, and when expectations are unmet, the foundation of our faith is exposed. Delay forces us to confront whether our confidence rests in God's character or in the outcomes we hope to receive. In times of delay, we often discover how closely our faith has been tied to results. If joy disappears when answers don't come, it may indicate that our trust has been placed more in the blessing than in the one who gives it. Waiting strips away the comfort of quick success and exposes whether our relationship with God is conditional or committed. True trust remains steady, even when circumstances do not change. Delay also challenges our patience with God. We may begin to question his intentions, his awareness, or his concern for our situation. These moments are revealing, not because God is threatened by our questions, but because they expose areas where trust is still growing. Waiting teaches us to bring our doubts to God rather than letting them pull us away from him. Honest dependence replaces shallow belief. Another way waiting reveals trust is through obedience. When outcomes are uncertain, obedience becomes a choice rather than a response to visible reward. Delay tests whether we will continue to follow God's instructions even when there is no immediate benefit. Trust is demonstrated not only by what we believe, but by how we live while we wait. Consistent obedience during delay reveals confidence in God's wisdom and timing. Waiting also exposes our coping mechanisms. In seasons of delay, people may turn to control, anxiety, or distraction to manage uncertainty. These responses reveal how much we rely on ourselves rather than on God. Trust grows when we learn to release control and resist the urge to force outcomes. Surrender becomes a sign of faith, acknowledging that God's plan is better than our strategies. Delay often brings discomfort, and discomfort reveals what we depend on for security. When familiar supports are removed or insufficient, we learn whether our sense of peace comes from stable circumstances or from trust in God's presence. Waiting teaches us that peace is not the absence of uncertainty, but the presence of trust. This realization deepens faith beyond surface level belief. Waiting also reveals whether we trust God's timing or only his power. Many people believe God is able, but struggle to believe he knows when. Delay challenges us to trust not just that God can act, but that he will act at the right moment. This kind of trust requires humility, acknowledging that our perspective is limited while God's understanding is complete. As trust is tested, it is also strengthened. Waiting gives faith room to mature. Each day of continued prayer, each moment of choosing hope over despair builds spiritual resilience. Trust becomes less reactive and more rooted. Over time, faith shifts from demanding immediate answers to resting in God's faithfulness. Delay also reveals how we interpret God's silence. Silence can be misread as indifference, but waiting teaches us to interpret silence as space for growth. Trust learns to listen differently, to discern God's presence beyond words or visible action. This deeper awareness fosters intimacy rather than distance. Waiting exposes whether our trust is self-focused or God-centered. When delays interrupt personal plans, faith is tested. We learn whether we trust God only when his plans align with ours or whether we trust him even when they diverge. God-centered trust accepts that his purposes may extend beyond personal comfort or immediate understanding. Through delay, trust becomes more authentic. It moves beyond rehearsed words into lived experience. Faith becomes something we practice daily rather than something we declare occasionally. Waiting reveals trust not to shame us, but to shape us, showing us where faith is strong and where it still needs to grow. Ultimately, waiting seasons refine trust by removing illusions and replacing them with genuine dependence on God. What is revealed in the waiting becomes the foundation for deeper faith and stronger spiritual maturity. When God decides to release what has been delayed, it often happens suddenly and unexpectedly. What may have taken years to prepare, position, or perfect can be released in a moment, and the shift is sometimes so dramatic that it feels almost impossible. The very thing that seemed unreachable, postponed, or blocked can arrive with a speed and clarity that surpasses human understanding. This suddenness is a hallmark of God's timing, demonstrating that he is in control and that no delay lasts longer than he intends. Breakthroughs are not random. They are the culmination of preparation, persistence, and trust. While waiting may feel long, it is always purposeful. God's sudden release is often preceded by quiet work behind the scenes. During the waiting period, circumstances, people, and resources are being aligned, though we may not see it. When the time is right, all the elements converge, creating an opening that seemed impossible while the delay was still in place. The moment of release reminds us that God's timing is perfect and that preparation and patience are not wasted. One remarkable aspect of God's sudden release is how it defies human logic. We might have assumed opportunities were lost, doors were closed, or possibilities had ended. Yet God can turn what seems like defeat into victory in a single instant. The timing of his release is precise, showing that the promise was never forgotten, only delayed until the right moment for maximum impact. What we once thought required years of effort can sometimes be accomplished in days or even hours once God moves. Sudden release also emphasizes God's sovereignty. While humans may try to force situations, manipulate outcomes, or rush results, God's timing reminds us that his plans cannot be hastened by human impatience. He alone determines when the right moment arrives. The sudden arrival of what has been delayed demonstrates that God is in control of history, circumstances, and every detail, and that he can overturn obstacles that seem insurmountable. No delay is too long, no opposition too strong, and no circumstance too complicated for his power. This suddenness often carries an element of surprise. People who have been waiting for years may not even recognize the blessing at first because it comes in an unexpected way or through unexpected means. God's ways are higher than our ways, and his timing often challenges our assumptions about how his promises should manifest. This surprise is part of the beauty of God's release. It reminds us that his wisdom is perfect and his methods are beyond our understanding. When God releases what has been delayed, it can create a profound sense of relief and joy. The tension built during the waiting period is transformed into celebration, gratitude, and renewed faith. People often marvel at how quickly circumstances change, how suddenly doors open, and how completely the breakthrough aligns with God's promises. This contrast between delay and release strengthens faith because it provides tangible proof that God honors his word, even when it feels postponed. The sudden release also serves as encouragement to those still in the waiting season. Witnessing God's ability to overturn delays reinforces hope and strengthens trust in his timing. It shows that persistence, patience, and faith are not in vain. Even when waiting feels endless, God's release can come at any moment, often when least expected, turning despair into hope and stagnation into progress. Sudden release is also a reminder of the importance of readiness. While God's timing cannot be rushed, He expects those who are waiting to remain prepared. Faithful obedience, continued prayer, and consistent diligence position us to recognize and seize the opportunity when it arrives. The blessing often comes in a moment, but its impact depends on how ready we are to respond. In addition, God's sudden release often benefits more than just the individual. When a long-delayed promise is fulfilled, it can inspire, encourage, and impact others in ways that extend beyond personal gain. God's timing allows the blessing to have maximum effect, reaching multiple people and advancing His purposes in ways that we may never fully see. Ultimately, the sudden release of what has been delayed is a powerful demonstration of God's power, faithfulness, and wisdom. It shows that delays are not permanent, that preparation is essential, and that God's timing is perfect. The very thing that seemed impossible or blocked can arrive in an instant, transforming circumstances, strengthening faith, and glorifying God in ways that leave us in awe. Faithfulness during seasons of delay is crucial because it positions us to receive and sustain the blessings God has promised. Waiting is not a passive activity. It is an active process that requires consistent obedience, perseverance, and trust. God honors those who remain faithful in the unseen, those who continue to serve, pray, and act according to His guidance, even when the outcome is not yet visible. The way we behave during delays determines how we will handle the release when it finally comes. Faithfulness develops consistency in our spiritual life. While it is easy to remain devoted when results are immediate, true faith is revealed when nothing seems to change. Continuing to pray, worship, and follow God's instructions despite prolonged waiting demonstrates a maturity that is necessary for handling greater responsibility. God often tests our commitment in quiet seasons so that when the blessing is released, we are prepared to steward it wisely. Another way faithfulness positions us is by building credibility with God. Obedience during delay proves that our relationship with Him is not conditional. It shows that we are motivated by love, trust, and reverence rather than convenience or desire for reward. This credibility makes us receptive to God's guidance and opens doors for opportunities that may not have been available otherwise. In essence, faithfulness during delay acts as a spiritual investment that multiplies when the blessing arrives. Faithfulness also strengthens character. Waiting periods can reveal impatience, frustration, and doubt, but responding with integrity and perseverance shapes resilience and humility. God uses these times to refine our attitudes, develop patience, and cultivate a steadfast heart. When we remain faithful despite challenges or discouragement, we develop the qualities necessary to maintain and maximize the blessings God releases. Without this preparation, sudden success or provision can become overwhelming or misused. Faithfulness during delay also demonstrates trust in God's wisdom. It is easy to question or doubt when answers are delayed, but continuing to follow God shows confidence that His timing is perfect. This kind of trust is more than passive hope. It is active belief expressed through consistent action. When we act faithfully during waiting, we align ourselves with God's plan and demonstrate readiness for the release of the blessing. Furthermore, faithfulness helps maintain spiritual focus. Delays can be distracting and discouraging, tempting us to seek alternatives or compromise our values. Remaining faithful keeps our attention on God rather than on the circumstances around us. It ensures that our hearts remain aligned with His purposes and that we are spiritually prepared to recognize and embrace the opportunity when it arrives. Those who are faithful during delay are often positioned to respond with clarity, wisdom, and discernment when God finally acts. Faithfulness also positions us to benefit from the full measure of God's blessing. The release of what has been delayed often carries responsibilities, opportunities, and influence. Without faithfulness, the sudden arrival of blessing can lead to misuse, mismanagement, or disappointment. By remaining steadfast, we develop the ability to steward the blessing well, maximizing its impact not only in our lives, but also in the lives of others. Additionally, faithfulness strengthens hope and perseverance in the wider community of believers. Those who remain devoted despite delays inspire others to trust God and stay committed. Their example, demonstrates that God honors persistence and that waiting is a vital part of the spiritual journey. Faithful endurance encourages a culture of trust, patience, and obedience among those who observe it. Faithfulness also creates opportunities for unexpected favor. God often rewards steadfastness in ways that exceed our expectations. While the delay tests our commitment, it also prepares the ground for supernatural alignment, divine connections, and blessings that we could not have anticipated. Those who remain faithful are often in the right place at the right time to receive not only what they hope for, but also additional blessings and opportunities. Finally, faithfulness during delay deepens intimacy with God. While waiting, we learn to depend on Him, seek His guidance, and trust His character rather than relying solely on visible results. This growing relationship strengthens our spiritual foundation, making us not only recipients of God's promises, but also vessels through which His purposes can flow. By being faithful, we position ourselves to experience God's release fully and to walk in a way that honors Him. In summary, remaining faithful during periods of delay is essential because it develops character, strengthens trust, ensures readiness, maintains focus, and cultivates stewardship. Faithfulness does not guarantee an immediate answer, but it guarantees that when God releases the long-awaited blessing, we are prepared to receive, sustain, and maximize it. Our consistency, obedience, and trust during waiting seasons determine the depth, impact, and longevity of the blessings God has promised. God's delays are not random. They are purposeful, intentional, and often designed to accomplish more than we can immediately perceive. Every moment of waiting has meaning, even if it is hidden from our view. Understanding that God works with purpose in delay shift our perspective from frustration to trust. When a promise seems postponed, it is not because God is indifferent or inattentive. Instead, He is orchestrating circumstances, refining our character, and preparing us for the fullness of what is to come. Purposeful delay often involves alignment. God may be arranging people, situations, or opportunities so that when the promise is fulfilled, it happens in the best possible way. While we see gaps, obstacles, and seeming stagnation, God sees the bigger picture. He aligns events and positions us strategically so that the release of His blessing will have maximum impact. What may appear as waiting is often a season of positioning. Delays are also opportunities for preparation. God uses time to equip us for the responsibilities and challenges that come with the fulfillment of His promises. We may need spiritual growth, emotional resilience, wisdom, or humility before we are ready to receive what He has prepared. The waiting period is not wasted, it is formative. God's purpose in delaying is to ensure that we are fully capable of handling the blessing without being overwhelmed or misled. Purposeful delay reveals priorities. It helps us examine what is truly important and where our focus lies. Often we want immediate results without considering whether they align with God's plan. Waiting forces reflection and self-examination. We learn to prioritize spiritual growth, obedience, and alignment with God's will over temporary satisfaction or expedient outcomes. In this way, delay is a tool for refining our hearts, Another aspect of purposeful delay is the testing of faith. God does not want passive followers. He desires those whose faith endures even when circumstances appear stagnant. Testing through delay reveals the depth of our trust and commitment. It also strengthens our